Today we want to discuss how KRA is keeping Kenya broke, the war on money. A few weeks ago, in October of 2022, the newspaper headline said, and I quote, 6 women were arrested at JKIA for allegedly trying to smuggle 102 million shillings into the country. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. And I mean seriously, think about that headline for 1 minute. What the story is saying is that 6 women arrived in Kenya through JKIA, the airport, and they were arrested by KRA customs officers for trying to smuggle money. This was in foreign currency, 102 million shillings in US dollars. Think about that. They were arrested for trying to smuggle into the country 102 million shillings. What kind of intellectual anorexia do you need to be suffering from to arrest someone bringing you money? How do you arrest someone putting food into your mouth? How do you arrest people bringing money into the country? I would understand if you arrest people taking out money, but these are people who've hustled for that money and they're bringing the money into the country. 102 million shillings. Now the country is desperately struggling to obtain foreign currency, US dollars. Yet these are people bringing in US dollars into the country in cash, and you arrest them. And then after they arrested them, they stole the money. They call it confiscation. That is theft by the state. It's not your money. You didn't work for it, but they stole the money. Now this money is the money that comes into the country by the diaspora who invests in Kenya. So they're robbing investors. I want you to think what KRA is doing. KRA is doing everything in its power to keep us poor. And this is just part 1 of this series, because the amount of crimes that KRA is committing in Kenya is astounding. And the fact that no one is standing up to them, no one is talking about this, and of course our useless parliament is not doing anything about it, is something that needs to be talked about. They are really causing a lot of economic damage to us. So this is just part 1 of the KRA series. And we need to understand, who does KRA work for? Who's their boss? Clearly they don't work in the interest of Kenya. So in whose interest are they working? Whose laws are they enforcing? How do you arrest someone for bringing you money? Can you imagine someone coming to your house and they want to give you money and you attack them? What level of insanity can this be? Now, this is part of a larger agenda that is happening. It's not necessarily a secret agenda. It's just that there's competition in the world. And part of that competition is manifesting itself in what is happening in Kenya, considering the financial flows that happen around Kenya. Now that's the subject of a different video, so I don't want to mix things. All I want to do is to express outrage that people can be arrested for bringing money into the country, and that money gets stolen by the state. What about ownership, the right to private property? What right does the state have to come and steal your property? They didn't work for it. They were not there when you're looking for that money. KRA will never help you get a job. You're jobless, you go abroad, you hustle, you bring money. You bring money back to Kenya, they arrest you and they steal that money. How is that right? Even under the rules of natural justice, how is that okay? And how can it be that there's no outcry anywhere? It's just taken as routine. No, it is not routine. The state, the KRA, has no right to your property. You know the way they ask us to pay taxes by force? You'd think they have a right to our property, like they have a right to our money. They have no right to our money. Paying taxes should be totally voluntary. I always say this: if the government wants money, let them start a business. Because if I want money, I start a business. I look for capital, I invest the capital, and then I make money. So if the government wants money, why can't they start a business? Why are they so dependent upon the population? Let them start a business like any other person and let them make their money. Some of the richest countries in the world, whose governments have a lot of money, they run businesses. For example, when you consider Saudi Arabia is very wealthy. At least the government is. Why? Because they run a business, and the business is called Aramco. They sell oil. They dig and they sell oil. That's how they make their money, isn't it? Now, look at the situation in Kenya. We have oil in Turkana. Why would the government create a company, go dig up that oil and sell it and make money? Why would they do that? Now, that's a separate issue altogether, I understand, but why can't they do that? Well, of course, they can't do that because they were told by the West that they should not dig up the oil or the coal that is in Kitui. So they are controlled from the West. The Mzungu is saying, we forbid you from digging up the natural oil that God gave you. They also gave the same message to Uganda, but Museveni insulted them, told them to, basically to go wameze wembe. And he said Uganda will continue to dig and sell the oil. Kenya has oil, but it has been abandoned. Why? To keep the Mzungu happy, because the instructions that run Kenya come from the West, they don't come from us. And the state doesn't exist to act in our best interest. It strictly exists to enforce Western interest within the country. At any rate, let's come back to this issue of who owns your money. What right does KRA has to take your property? What right? They have no right. And we need to change the laws to take away power from KRA. That you can go abroad, hustle, bring your money in cash. It's your money. It's your money. And some KRA officer in a cheap suit steals all your sweat. Been hustling for 10 years. Some random guy, a petty official in KRA has the right to steal your sweat for the last 10 years and to jail you for bringing money into the country so that you can invest for yourself. That's not the only incident. There are so many incidences. Now, this other one also was in that newspaper article. They said that someone from America sent money to their relatives in Kenya, presumably for investment. And it was a lot of money. It was 28,000 US dollars. They simply put it in a package and they sent it by mail. Now, the money arrives. It goes through all these other countries as cash, as a wad of cash, and it arrives in Kenya. So KRA breaks into that package and they steal the money. What right do they have to steal that $28,000? A Kenyan is hustling in America. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know how they got there. You did not help them to get there. They're hustling to try and improve their lives and the lives of their children. And then KRA shows up and steals that money. What right do they have to steal that money? That's the discussion that I want to have today. What right does KRA has to steal the money? And what are the consequences of this? The consequences of this is that as they continue to steal people's money, Kenyans in the diaspora, will stop sending money to Kenya. Because if your money is going to get stolen, why would you bring hard currency in Kenya? And we need the hard currency. If the money is converted abroad, let me tell you, if it's converted abroad through the banking systems, what that means is that it is not US dollars that will arrive in Kenya. It is Kenya shillings that will be credited into the account. And the government and the state is claiming that they're desperate for foreign currency. And these are people who are bringing in actual foreign currency, in actual notes. You would think that if someone has normal intelligence, you would think that they would encourage Kenyans in the diaspora to bring in their money in cash. They'd be telling them, look, don't convert it at Western Union because it will come to Kenya as Kenya shillings and we need it as US dollars or as euros or whatever currency. Bring that money as cash. You'd think that's the message they'd be sending to the diaspora. You guys stop sending money through banking systems. Bring it in cash because we are desperate for those notes. But no, they do exactly opposite. They act in the exact opposite interest of the country, greatly making the country poor. Because if you get an influx of US dollars in currency, in actual paper, you understand, then it means that the exchange rate improves for the Kenya shilling, isn't it? Because right now, the Kenya shilling has lost a lot of value. vis-a-vis the US dollar. Why? Because there's a great demand for US dollars. Because that's the currency that we use to, import fuel and so on and so forth. So as the price of petrol goes up globally, it means we need more US dollars for the same amount of fuel that we require to run our economy. And as the demand for dollars goes up, then it means our shilling loses value to that extent. So you would think one of the best ways to reverse this trend is to encourage Kenyans in the diaspora to send actual paper money so that we have more US dollars coming into the country. You know the way when tourists come to Kenya and they spend their currency in Kenya, or they spend US dollars in Kenya, and it gives our currency more strength, right? Because we're having dollars coming in. Now think, we have a diaspora that is sending billions into Kenya. How about you tell them, stop sending through Western Union, send actual currency to Kenya, and you protect it for them. Just send it as cash. You'd think that's what they would do, but they're doing the exact opposite, critically sabotaging us. So I always tell you that the elite that rules Kenya not in the best interest of Kenya. They rule Kenya in the best interest of the West. So why would they do this? They are doing this because they are under instructions from London and Washington that they have to do everything within their power to prevent cash from coming into Kenya in foreign currency. Yet we need that foreign currency. So instead of acting in our best interest, they act in the best interest of the Mzungu. So that's why I say this sellout attitude, this coconut attitude that very many Kenyans have. You may think it doesn't have real world consequences. It does have real world consequences, because when the country is taken over, by sellouts who don't seem to understand what is in their best interest, then we all suffer. So I'm only doing this video to express my outrage that they would arrest someone bringing in money into the country and then steal that money. They have no right to steal that money. Zero. But they will counter and say, oh, the Americans passed a law and they're pushing us to fight what they call anti-money laundering. Now, that is a very loaded statement. But even if that is the situation, if you are mature, if you're a grown-up, and your brain functions like a normal person, once these 6 women arrived with that 100 million shillings in US dollars, there's something called looking the other way, because it is in the national interest that they bring in that money. You look away. You know what you saw, but you look away because you have a brain, right? There are many things we overlook because it is in our interest to overlook those things, right? So the 28,000 US dollars that they stole from that Kenyan who had sent it to his relatives in Nairobi, you look away, right? That's what all mature countries do. You act in your own best interest, not in the interest of London or Washington. But the problem we're having is that our elite truly believe that they are Europeans. A lot of people who are wealthy in Kenya, they truly believe that they are a Mzungu. In fact, when you go into their houses, there is no African language spoken at all. They bring up their children in a way that they never understand any African language. Because truly on the inside, they are coconuts. They are brown on the outside, but Mzungu on the inside. So when they receive instructions from America, they truly believe that they and American interests are the same interest. Because they don't see themselves as Africans. They see themselves as a Mzungu. And this is the problem when you're ruled by an elite that cannot relate to the country that they're supposed to be ruling. This is the challenge. Anytime a country is ruled by basically coconuts, that country can never succeed and it can never prosper. And that's the problem that we're having in Kenya. And you can see when they implement these American rules in Kenya, it greatly acts to impoverish us. Any other mature country, any other mature population, any other mature elite would encourage its diaspora to bring in as much foreign currency in cash, because the country desperately needs it.